In August 1945, the Second World War had reached Japan's doorstep, yet its leaders still had not surrendered. Then, within 9 extraordinary days, a chain of military and political shocks changed everything.
By that summer, Japan's cities had been devastated by conventional bombing. Shipping was strangled, fuel and food were scarce, and American forces had moved steadily closer to the Japanese home islands. Okinawa had shown what an invasion of Japan might become: prolonged, brutal, and enormously costly. American planners prepared for further operations, while Japan's military leadership continued to demand resistance. On July 26, the United States, Britain, and China issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's surrender and warning of devastating consequences if the war continued. Tokyo still refused to accept the terms. Inside Japan's government, there was no agreement on how to end the war. Some leaders sought a negotiated settlement. Powerful military figures still hoped to secure better terms or fight one final decisive battle. Monday, August 6, began as an ordinary summer morning in Hiroshima. At 8:15, that ordinary world changed. An American B-29 bomber was approaching the city at high altitude.
The aircraft was the Enola Gay. Its weapon, nicknamed Little Boy, was unlike any bomb previously used in war. Hiroshima became the first city attacked with an atomic weapon.
In seconds, a vast area was destroyed. Tens of thousands died immediately, or would die from injuries and radiation. But in Tokyo, leaders initially struggled even to understand what had happened. Hiroshima revealed a terrifying new scale of destruction. Yet even this catastrophe did not produce an immediate surrender. Japan's governing system was divided, and the military still resisted unconditional capitulation. Reports arrived slowly and incompletely. Investigators were sent toward Hiroshima. Soon, Japan's leaders understood that the United States possessed a weapon capable of destroying a city with a single bomb. But Hiroshima alone did not immediately break the deadlock. Key military leaders still wanted conditions that would protect Japan's political system, armed forces, and their control over any occupation process. Nearly 2 days passed after Hiroshima without a final decision. Then, during the night of August 8 and 9, Japan received a second strategic shock, one its diplomats had desperately hoped to avoid.
The Soviet Union declared war on Japan. Moscow was no longer a potential mediator. Instead, one of the world's largest armies was now joining the conflict against the Japanese Empire.
Soviet forces launched a massive offensive into Japanese-held Manchuria. Experienced Red Army formations struck across a huge front, confronting the Kwantung Army and threatening Japan's remaining position on the Asian mainland. For Japanese leaders, this meant more than another battlefield setback. The Soviet attack threatened forces, territory, and strategic assumptions that Tokyo had counted on when considering how long the war could continue. While Tokyo absorbed news of the Soviet attack, another American B-29 was already in the air. Its primary target was Kokura, but cloud and visibility problems redirected the mission toward Nagasaki. Shortly after 11 in the morning, a second atomic bomb exploded over Nagasaki. In only 3 days, Japan had experienced 2 nuclear attacks and the entry of the Soviet Union into the war. Nagasaki deepened the crisis, but surrender was still not automatic. Japan's leaders had to make a political decision, and the men responsible for that decision remained sharply divided. Japan's 6-member Inner War Council split evenly. 3 favored accepting the Potsdam terms with limited conditions. 3 military members demanded stronger guarantees before surrendering. Hardliners feared occupation, disarmament, and the fate of the imperial institution. Some still hoped an invasion could be made so costly that the Allies would negotiate more favorable terms.
The opposing group believed continued war risked catastrophe. More atomic attacks, Soviet advances, and eventually an invasion of the homeland. For them, preserving Japan required ending the war immediately. Either side could command a majority. After years of war, millions of deaths, and the destruction of entire cities, the government still could not agree on surrender. The stalemate required an extraordinary intervention. In the early hours of August 10th, the deadlock was placed before Emperor Hirohito. Normally removed from direct political decision-making, he was asked to choose between the competing positions.
Japan transmitted an offer to accept the Potsdam Declaration, but with an important qualification. Surrender must not prejudice the emperor's position as sovereign ruler.
The Allied reply did not guarantee the emperor's sovereign authority. It stated that, after surrender, the emperor and Japanese government would be subject to the supreme commander of the Allied powers. That wording reopened the argument. Hardliners feared the throne had not been protected. The peace faction believed the reply offered the only realistic path to save the country from further destruction. For 2 more days, the dispute continued while the strategic situation worsened. Soviet forces advanced in Asia, American pressure continued, and Japan's leaders knew another atomic attack might be possible.
By August 14th, there was little time left for political maneuver. Japan faced simultaneous military, diplomatic, and humanitarian disaster. Still, senior leaders remained divided over whether to accept the Allied response.
Once again, the decision went to the emperor. Hirohito reaffirmed his wish to accept the Allied terms. The government would surrender, and an imperial rescript would explain the decision to the Japanese people.
After nearly 4 years of Pacific War, the decision had finally been made. Yet a dangerous question remained. Would every part of the Japanese military obey it? A surrender rescript was prepared for Hirohito to read. Because most Japanese citizens had never heard the emperor's voice, the coming broadcast would itself be unprecedented.
That night, the emperor recorded his message onto phonograph discs inside the palace. Those recordings would have to survive until noon the following day. Group of Japanese army officers believed surrender was unacceptable. During the night, they launched an attempted coup, hoping to stop the broadcast and prevent the emperor's decision from taking effect.
Rebel troops entered and sealed parts of the imperial palace. Their crucial objective was simple: find the emperor's recorded surrender message before it could be broadcast. The rebels searched through the palace, but failed to find the recordings. Loyal officers and senior commanders refused to give the uprising the support it needed. By morning, the attempted coup had collapsed. The recordings survived. Nothing now stood between the emperor's decision and millions of Japanese citizens waiting beside their radios.
At noon on August 15th, radios across Japan carried a voice many citizens had never heard before: Emperor Hirohito addressing the nation directly. His formal language was difficult for many listeners to understand, but the meaning soon became clear. Japan would accept the Allied terms. The fighting was to end. There was no single reaction. Relief, grief, disbelief, and humiliation existed side by side. For soldiers spread across Asia and the Pacific, orders to cease fighting would travel over the following days. Japan announced surrender on August 15th. The formal instrument was signed aboard USS Missouri on September 2, 1945. World War II was over, but the 9 days that forced the decision had opened the nuclear age.